welcome to the Campfire Curmudgeon Podcast. I'm your host, Heidi S., and with me is...
Nicholas J.
Yay! Guess what we're going to talk about today?
Ghosts?
Sort of.
Heroes?
Definitely.
Campfire songs.
We're going to talk about Elvis.
Yay!
Yay!
Elvis Costello?
Nope, Elvis Presley.
Elvis Presley, the king.
So, the reason we're going to talk about Elvis today is he kind of falls under conspiracy ghost story type dealios.
Right, there's some mythology around the man because he's a legend.
There's a lot, and I think there's enough that we can consider this a paranormal episode.
Yeah.
Yay! So, I know that you said you've been thinking about Elvis a lot lately.
I'm having the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon apply to my life with Elvis specifically. Like, we had a promotion at work where you could do recognition to somebody else, and there were little cards that said "caught in the act," and that was similar enough phrasing to the opening lines of Suspicious Minds. We're caught in the act. And so that all day at work, it was just stuck in my head. And then it was the 1-year anniversary of the other podcast that I have,
the John Carpent
cast. We have a 2-part episode on Elvis because there was a mini-series directed, made for TV by John Carpenter in the late 70s called Elvis and starring Kurt Russell. And one of the consultants and has a supporting role in the movie was part of Elvis's entourage named Charlie Hodge.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Hodge was actually in the movie, and that blew my mind. Go listen to that episode to hear why it blew my mind. But, so that's kind of something that also happened. And then if anybody has seen, we're recording this around about 2 weeks after the release of Denis Villeneuve's movie Blade Runner 2049. And Elvis is used prominently and for a very cool effect in that film, playing Suspicious Minds in a key scene, which I was like, wow, okay, we got to do an episode on Elvis.
And this episode's going to come out a little late because you were busy doing something, and you also encountered Elvis as well.
Yeah, I had to go get some items from a relative who had to vacate their home. And we kind of went through their items, and in their music collection was just
Elvis
of Elvis. I mean, other singers too, but just a lot of Elvis because that person had definitely grown up in the era of Elvis.
Well, it was right after you had mentioned how Elvis was on your mind, and
yeah.
Maybe someday we should do a podcast with Elvis,
yeah.
and then
we get there and it's like, oh wow!
I was like, well, all right,
boxes
I guess I know what I'm going to make this next podcast on.
All right, so tell me about Elvis Presley.
So we're going to go over Elvis's death.
Yeah, if you don't know the details of Elvis's life, then go check
Yeah, you can check out the details because we're focused on, sadly,
the weird stuff,
the end part, and a lot of people believe that he didn't actually die.
Right.
So to some people, this is also a conspiracy. This is part of it, but we're gonna go over this.
It's a wink and a nod, like Elvis has left the building, and yeah.
So Elvis left the building on August 16th, 1977, and he suffered a heart attack. This was in his Graceland estate, and he died as a result of this heart attack. He had been for many years using and abusing prescription drugs. So some people thought that potentially anaphylactic shock from all of the codeine pills that he was taking could have played some part in this. Actually, the ethics of some of the doctors involved with his death, like investigating it and involved with him, they were kind of like put under some scrutiny.
Good thing that scrutiny led to change.
Before his autopsy and toxicology reports were even completed, a medical examiner, Dr. Jerry Francisco, stated that the cause of death for Elvis was a cardiac arrhythmia. Do you know where the problem in that lies?
You don't have a steady heartbeat.
Yeah, but what would be the problem with diagnosing that as the cause of death?
you can't really study a regular heartbeat as regular or irregular after
once your
a
heart
person's
stops
dead.
beating,
Yeah.
you can't. That was the problem. This wasn't like a doctor who had diagnosed him with this before. This was something to where the doctor said this is what caused his death, but didn't have any previous records of anything like this. So people,
you know
were
what
like,
he died of? Lack of ability to blink. And it's like, you're looking at it, and it's like, we don't
know that. So it wasn't like this had been anything. I mean, this can cause a heart attack, but if you don't have any prior diagnosis, I mean, even if you did have prior diagnosis, I'm pretty sure they would still just say heart attack, potentially caused by
a myocardial infarction.
So because he just said this is what caused it, people were like, really? Really? His main physician, Dr. Nicholas. I was like, I'm not kidding.
Dr. Nicholas?
Yes.
This is then
is that your fake doctor name?
No. This is like, I don't know if you could go back and interview old Simpsons writers, but hi, Dr. Nick, like the scam doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the Simpsons started in the mid to late 80s, which I think it was like 88 or 89 when it was first on Fox.
Yeah, and Elvis died.
And Elvis died at that point, like, what, 10 years after? So it's like, yeah, the quack doctor. Yeah. We're going to call him Dr. Nick Riviera, but that's a stone's throw to Dr. Nicholas.
You think so?
Yes.
I don't know about that, but
I'm Dr. Nicholas. Would you like any lubes?
Well, this was Elvis's main physician, and he was never.
His son went on to work for Michael Jackson.
Oh no, he was never held criminally liable for the singer's death. No charges were ever brought against him. He was exonerated, I guess. In the first 8 months of the year 1977, just those first 8 months alone, he had prescribed more than 10,000 doses of sedatives, amphetamines, and narcotics, all to Elvis. He had prescribed that many doses of that many different types of prescription drugs.
Right.
Sedatives, amphetamines, narcotics, all to Elvis. His license was suspended for 3 months.
Ooh.
But only 3 months.
So harsh.
Until it was permanently revoked in the 1990s, after the Tennessee Medical Board brought new charges up for overprescription. So eventually somebody did look at this and go, what the hell were you doing?
I mean, that's ungodly. And it really puts the lie. I mean, it's really funny considering, like, there's a movie called Elvis and Nixon, and it portrays, like, the one day Elvis visited the White House to meet Dick Nixon, and he's like, hey, I'm involved with all this rock and roll, like, Hollywood post-hippie crap, and these rock stars, they're all using illegal drugs. I want you to deputize me as an FBI agent. And Nixon was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Like, he had a meeting where he's like, I want to be an undercover FBI agent.
Well, because these were all prescription.
Perfectly legal. Yeah.
The thing that always surprises me about these kind of deaths that happen with celebrities, I just feel like, was nobody watching out for them? Because these doctors were clearly not helping. They're clearly not helping their patient, and it's just that thing where it's kind of sad if you think about it. If you found out your friend was taking, like, this many pills, wouldn't you maybe, like, quietly report this doctor at least?
Yeah.
Like, you know, if nothing else, just submit a little review to the medical board. Be like, hey, guys, why don't you check on this? Because something's not right. I just am so baffled. Like, he was able to prescribe him that much. What pharmacy even filled that? I mean, I guess in, 1977 it was a little bit different than it is nowadays, but I'm just thinking about, like, now how hard it is to get stuff filled. My brother's a pharmacy tech, and I hear stories all the time, and I'm just like, if it's, like, that hard to get your prescriptions filled, like, sometimes I know people that have chronic illnesses similar to or the same as mine that are on a lot of painkillers and stuff, legitimately prescribed that they have trouble filling.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how did he get this
Why?
much
Because the pharmacist
medication?
has to jump through the hoops after the...
Because it's up to their discretion, and they can say, I'm not filling this.
Yeah.
You have to take it to another pharmacy, or I need to talk to your doctor and make sure you're not faking this.
Because they see so much drug-seeking behavior.
Yeah, they can consider it, like,
I mean,
abuse
that does
of prescription
stink.
drugs. But that's what I'm saying is it's just like, it's so hard now sometimes for people even legitimately to get their prescription. And
Right.
in 1977, he was able to just be handed handfuls of pills.
And it's currently October, and October is what awareness month?
It's Invisible Disability Awareness Month.
Yes. So
Yay.
be aware.
Be aware.
There are illnesses out there, but those people do suffer almost silently. And then they kind of reap the scorn of people who are like, I can't see that you're disabled, therefore you're cheating somehow. Right?
Very true.
That's why you don't get a handicap sticker
Nope.
on your car.
I refuse because I don't want to deal with coming out and having my car full of stickers or faker written on it or keyed on it, like
right,
people I know have had to deal with.
By a member of the public who obviously is judging a book by its cover.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, technically, too, you can say that addiction falls under that.
Yeah.
Clearly, Elvis had an issue.
Yeah.
And whether that was that he was using these medications because he had some sort of undiagnosed mental illness or he had depression. Some people do say that he suffered from depression, and that's kind of sad that instead of getting
I
any
could see him as
help,
having bipolar symptoms. I don't want to diagnose because I'm not even.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He clearly had something. We don't know what he had, but if you're
also fame it messes up your brain.
Well, but still, I mean that he could have had something. If you're taking that many pills, that many drugs to function on a daily basis. I mean, I don't know how many he took on a daily basis, but if you're looking at how many were prescribed.
How many he was prescribed and how much was doled out to his entourage.
I mean, he was probably using a lot to just kind of be numb, and it's like there was either something physically or mentally wrong there that he was trying to self-medicate and not getting real help for it. So that kind of stuff. Hopefully, now, today, more doctors try to be more aware of stuff like that, so it is a good thing sometimes that people can't get their medication so easily, but
it's not there for no reason.
No, but
so then what?
Some of the interesting thing is there's been more recent research that was done into actually what it was that caused the heart failure. Some doctors said they didn't know if it necessarily was. They couldn't really say the drugs caused Elvis's heart attack. They couldn't actually say, like, yes, drugs did it. But they could say, yes, he was taking an ungodly amount of drugs. He was abusing them, and it probably didn't help. It definitely led to his death. They said that he was chronically ill with diabetes, glaucoma, constipation, which some people think of as like, oh, that's funny, or like it doesn't sound serious.
It sucks.
It actually can be very serious. And so what's sad is...
And it's a common byproduct of taking opiate painkillers.
Exactly. They think that could be what caused the chronic constipation, but the other issues he had, these medical issues, can be painful. And so instead of being treated, finding different ways to treat the pain, he was just taking a whole bunch of drugs.
Yuck.
Which was not helping his body. And they said that the large amount of drugs he'd taken over the years, and he had been admitted for drug detoxification and methadone treatments. So they think that he died of something called Valsalva maneuver, which is like the most depressing way to die. Basically, it's straining on the toilet caused a heart attack, which is like the worst way, and it makes your heart stop. I was just like, oh, poor Elvis of all the ways.
Yeah.
And that's why I find it so sad that it's like, did this guy not have someone in his life that was enough of a friend to like slap him across the face, take his pills away, and be like, nah, we're getting you some real help? I mean, maybe he did, and maybe they tried, and it was just too difficult. I don't know enough about his
I think his entourage
situation.
Was big, but at the same time, like, when he got confrontational with them, he saw it as, like, an offensive thing. Like, he had a childhood friend named Red. And, I don't know the true story, but I know that it was a plot point of the John Carpenter film, how he kind of came up with Elvis from the beginning, just as a buddy. And then, like, at one point, like, Elvis's behavior is so, like, crazy, reckless byproduct of his addiction.
And that's what I'm saying.
That he casts Red away, and then Red kind of comes back, but at the same time, it's like, he comes back for his Vegas comeback tour. But then the Vegas comeback tour led to, like this,
Yep.
like his current state of like what they call the fat Elvis era. And it's
Yes.
just like,
and that's why I say I don't know if, Friends Like Red tried or if they just kind of walked away. But that's what I'm saying. It's like maybe there wasn't enough.
Here's the thing: when somebody hits bottom, they're usually like homeless.
Yeah.
He was never going
No.
to be homeless. He was never going to be like somebody that, like, a lot of the time it's like you don't say no to people.
Yeah.
And
Well, but I think that's what happens to celebrities is sometimes people don't want to. They either don't want to like not be friends with this person, so they put up with shit they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Or they just go, oh, he's fine. He's got other people. He doesn't need me. Whatever.
Right.
It's
like
not
I take up
worth
a
it.
fifth of the slack, and
Yeah,
the
so
other
they're
guys
like,
will
it's
do
not
the
worth
same.
it.
And it's
I'm
like, no,
just-
you're probably the only one doing that.
Well, and that's the thing. It's almost like that bystander effect of like nobody helps because everybody assumes somebody else
is
has
gonna
it,
help.
or they assume he's seeing a doctor. The doctor should be taking care of him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he was really failed by specifically his doctor, but maybe his friends too. And who's to say that, maybe because he did have some medical conditions, maybe he would have died anyways.
Yeah.
But it is kind of sad that he had to die in such a, I would guess, embarrassing way. I mean, I guess if you're dead, you're not really embarrassed. But
at the same time, the whole point is like how many kids growing up, how many of you out there were like, always wear clean underwear because if you get in a car accident, and it's like.
That's why I'm like, always pee before I get in the car, just in case I get in a car accident. Even if I die, I don't want to be the dead body that peed themselves.
Yeah.
Empty it out. But, like...
That's what he died trying to do.
Well, that's the thing is, like, we always talk about how sometimes traumatic deaths
linger,
can leave some sort of imprint. So even if it's like somebody's not there have been a lot of sightings around Graceland. It's like maybe he was just like, no, this is not how I die. And it's like that amount of energy just like imprinted.
Like if he had his boots on, he would have dug his heels in.
Right? So it's like maybe that like traumatic death imprinted enough to where his image is like still seen. You can still see him. He left such a mark on his surroundings. Because there have been people that say, they go to Graceland, they say they see him, but a lot of the time it's in photographs or like they saw him in the window or something. Something interesting too that I wanted to bring up was Ed Parker. Ed Parker was a karate instructor. He taught American Kempo, which later he was in charge of, I think it was like the International Kenpo Association. Because he had somebody that he taught that went to Ireland to teach. So he was like, well, now I'm in charge of the International Kenpo Association. And he taught Kenpo to Elvis Presley. And I'm interested in this because I have a little bit of a connection to Ed Parker. Ed Parker taught my grandmaster. I took Kenpo. And my grandmaster was Master Greg Silva. And he was taught by Ed Parker, who then taught my master, Fred De Palma. So that was kind of cool.
So he's like a great
few steps
grandmaster.
removed. Yeah, so he would be like my great grandmaster. And my grandmaster, Master Greg Silva, who directly worked with Ed Parker, he would sometimes come to our studio and teach classes that you could go and see as additional like classes, and we did that once. Part of our training for being a black belt too was we had to read one of Ed Parker's books that he wrote about Kenpo, so that was kind of cool. And you can see Ed Parker with Elvis Presley in the opening sequence of the TV special, 1977, Elvis in Concert.
Really?
So, yeah, you can see him right there at the opening. He wrote a book about his time with Elvis on the road, and he was in one interview where he had been talking about how he spoke with Elvis a lot, and he spent a lot of time with Elvis, and somebody asked him if he spoke with Elvis a lot, and he said, yes, I still do. And this was after Elvis's death. So when he responded with, yes, I still do, people were like, what does that mean? Does that mean that he's still alive? Or does that mean like you just talk to him like some people do with deceased like friends or relatives? Like, what does that mean? And he never said what he meant. And who knows, maybe he was just kind of messing with them, but I thought that was interesting too, that kind of got people talking.
My first question would be, does he talk back?
Yeah, exactly. Does he talk back? Shortly after Elvis's death, a man at the Memphis airport, he purchased a one-way ticket to Buenos Aires and Argentina. He gave the name John Burroughs. So this was a name that Elvis used to use when he was booking hotels, so that people wouldn't know he was staying there. People described him as somebody who looked like Elvis. So that was something that kind of helped with those rumors of Elvis isn't really dead, or people thought that he had faked his death. So some people think that this was him buying a plane ticket to get out of Dodge for whatever reason.
You can't
or
handle
get
that
out
anymore.
of Graceland.
Yeah.
This was when you could give whatever name and buy a plane ticket.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, another thing that makes some of his fans or conspiracy theorists think that he faked his death is his headstone. Now, this is kind of weird. So, his middle name on his birth certificate and on his headstone is spelled Aaron, Aaron.
Uh-huh.
Well, supposedly or allegedly, Elvis himself or his parents, at one point they had decided they actually wanted to legally change the spelling of his middle name to Aron. So Aaron without the second A.
Okay.
And the reason for this is he had a stillborn twin. His stillborn twin was named Jesse Garon Presley.
Uh-huh.
So his middle name was spelled Garon.
Gotcha.
So they wanted to make Elvis's middle name more similar. After that happened, after that child was born, still they decided, well, we want to basically drop the G and have it be almost the exact same middle name, kind of as like a nod or a remembrance of that deceased twin. So since this was something that was important to him, some people believe that he faked his own death, and this was his sign to his friends and his people that knew him well that wasn't actually him. That's I find that kind of interesting, but I feel like even if this was something that maybe he or his parents wanted to change, it maybe never actually happened. And if your name is spelled a certain way on your birth certificate, it's going to be spelled that way on your death certificate, and it's probably going to be put on your headstone that way.
Yeah.
Unless in a will or something you have asked them
for a legal name change.
Well, not a legal name change. It's too late at that point, but to place it on your headstone a certain way. If there's if there's nothing to ask for that, it would probably be written the same way. So I don't know if that one has too much, if there's too much there, but some people think it is a sign. And I guess it would be one of those things that it's like, well, that would be a real good sign, because who's going to know that about you? Yeah. Like, oh, he didn't really die because he changed. He didn't have, he has the two A's, so we know that's not really him in there. Oh, okay. I can rest easy knowing my friend's still alive. Yeah, it's like the most interesting way to tell them.
To put yourself in denial. Elvis's mom used to say he had the energy of two kids.
Yeah, yeah. That was another kind of, I think, little nod to his brother. Kind of like she was saying, he was still with him in a way, almost as if he was there running along with him, feeling him on. There's another story, and this one has to do with a photo. So in Graceland, there was a pool house, and Mike Joseph was visiting Graceland with his family. This was December 31st, 1977. So this was very shortly after his death. Yeah. And while he was there, he took a photo. And supposedly it shows Elvis sitting in his pool house. In an interview with Larry King, Joe Esposito claims that the person in the photo is actually Al Strada. Al Strada. I'm like, did I say? I feel like I said that weird.
I thought it was an Italian word when you said
No, Al Strada. Okay. So
like it was Chupacabra, like it was El Strada.
It was Al.
It was Al Strada. Like, yes. This was Memphis. This wasn't.
Yeah. I was like, wait, I ran that all together.
Hey, Al.
One word. But that was what Joe Esposito claims. So some people believe that it was probably really Al. Some people think that no, this is a sign Elvis faked his own death and he was chilling in his pool house, which if you faked your own death, why would you be chilling in your own pool house when people are running around your property because you just died? I don't think that's the smartest.
It's been about 14 weeks Pool house, my favorite place now.
Yep, time to be. But some people also wonder if it was like a ghost image.
Yeah.
Caught. Kind of an interesting theory. What do you think about that?
I think that Elvis fans are going to see Elvis everywhere.
Right?
It's like a frequency phenomenon.
Well, and you have to remember too.
And I'm not saying like
in the 70s.
I'm not saying like Beatles fans because everybody's kind of a Beatles fan. I'm saying like the Elvis diehards that go to Graceland.
Well, but in the style too.
Uh-huh.
In the 70s, the style of his facial hair and his hair wasn't something that was so unusual that nobody besides Elvis had it.
No, he appealed to mainstream crowds.
And that's what I'm saying is, and how many people
look at IGI, I got sequined.
Well, that's that thing where like when you go,
he was a showman, yeah.
When you go to a hairdresser, how many people do you see with clippings or on nowadays on their phone an image of a celebrity who they want their hair to look like that celebrity?
Make me look like this.
Yeah. So how unusual is it? Like when people see a cool haircut, everybody wants it. So it's like whatever. It's not. Elvis didn't look so different that nobody else looks like him. So.
Also, I don't know if it was before death or right after death. We'd probably have there's actually Elvis historians, I bet. But when did when did the phenomenon of the Elvis impersonator start? I mean, that had to be the Vegas comeback, right?
I actually think some of it started before his death.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like the Vegas comeback in the 70s, like before he died. Yeah.
Well, there was an author of a book. It was a 1988 book called Elvis Alive. The author is Gail Brewer Giorgio, and she told Time, as in like Time magazine, that after looking through FBI documents, that Elvis had to go into witness protection.
Really?
So her claim is that she saw documentation claiming that the FBI enlisted him to help take down a criminal organization called the Fraternity, some sort of mafia type organization.
Called the Fraternity.
Well, I've seen some people say that this was of a faction of the mafia, or I've seen this was mafia-esque. But what her claim is that he had to help take them down, and they found out that he was a mole, and he was going to be killed. So the FBI was like, your cover's blown. The only thing you can do now is fake your death, and we got to put you in witness protection. And a lot of people really believe this, and some people claim that they have proof because on his 82nd birthday, a photo was taken at Graceland. There was like a bunch of tourists and people there, fans. There was a man, I'm going to put this picture on Facebook and Instagram. There's a picture where there's this man. He's got a jacket and a hat, and they both look like they have some sort of insignia. I can't see them. He's standing in the back, white beard, sunglasses, and next to him are two men who I can't really see in the picture. They just have matching jackets. But what people are saying that were there were that those were security personnel who were escorting this person, this old man with the beard. So some people say that was Elvis. That
Whitsec is actually where
he
actually
went. Coming to his own thing. Well, no, they're just saying that he came back to Graceland, wherever he was.
Yeah.
He came back for I'm sure that they put on some sort of an event, because I can see like a microphone and stuff in the picture, and that he has some security with him. So they're like, well, he's got to be somebody famous. Why not have it be Elvis? And they think this man looks like he could be an 82-year-old Elvis. So we'll post that up for you guys to let us know what you think, if you think that this man is Elvis.
Just to tag in here, the Elvis impersonation started early. Like the earliest known first Elvis impersonator was a guy named Carl Cheesy Nelson from Texarkana,
Cheesy
Arkansas.
Nelson, huh?
In 1954 he started. So basically it's always been a thing. And actually, because he was the first impersonator in the South, like he and Elvis became friends.
I actually have read that.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be Elvis. Everybody wanted to see Elvis. Everybody wanted to have Elvis play at their wedding, play at their birthday.
Right.
You can't have that. So of course there's going to be impersonators.
Also, speaking of impersonators and kind of mythic, are they still around endings? Andy Kaufman.
Yes.
Eccentric comedian. Jim Carrey did the biopic about him called Man in the Moon. Started his act by doing a lot of Elvis impersonating, and as he got older and more famous, it kind of waned. But Andy Kaufman died of a cancer that basically it's like, well, did he fake it? Is he still around? Because he was known for elaborate and sometimes just the point of it was to be puzzling and frustrating pranks.
I think out of all of these kinds of things that people have stated, the one that honestly makes the most sense to me would be the witness protection thing, because he's not somebody that can just disappear and be put into witness protection. He's somebody so famous that if they're going to put him in witness protection, they would have to have it be elaborate, and that may play into the part of why there was originally no charges against that doctor, but then later it was just overprescription. It was nothing related to death or anything. The charges were just strictly for overprescribing. The other doctor stated the cause of his death as something that couldn't cause his death before the autopsy. Yeah. Why would you have a doctor publicly saying, "Oh, this is why he died"?
Fame. Yeah, like I would say, a doctor trying to get famous on the coattails of
if you're a doctor, you should know that cardiac arrhythmia is not the best thing. You know what I mean? That sounds like a panic to me. But just
imagine, imagine it's true, right? Imagine being one of the most famous human beings on the planet and having to go into witness protection. Like what would your option be? Like Nome, Alaska, but then the 3 people or the population of Nome, Alaska would know who you are as soon as. I think that guy's like Elvis Presley.
Well, there has been a lot of rumors of somebody moving into town that looked like Elvis. Lots of people have said that all over the world, not just the country. And that's the thing is, who says he has to be moved within the country? He's so famous. Maybe they were like, all right, where do you want to go? You want to leave the country?
Stick out like a sore thumb in Casablanca.
Well, they'd have to put him somewhere. Obviously, he could blend in if the whole point is to hide a celebrity.
Where could you blend in as Elvis?
How many Elvis impersonators are there? He could be like, yeah, I'm an Elvis impersonator.
Yeah, I think that's the plot of a movie.
Right?
Yeah, there's actually a couple movies. One of them is 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Yes. It's like a crime movie about Elvis impersonators. But there's one called Bubba Hotep, and it's about an Elvis, like Elvis or an Elvis impersonator. I'm not going to spoil it or give anything away. In an old retirement home, and he and JFK still lives, under a different name, and then they fight off like an Egyptian mummy. Apparently it's an awesome movie.
I've not seen this movie. It sounds like an awesome movie.
Yeah, but when you hear about, I think it's Bruce Campbell. Yeah. Plays Elvis impersonator.
Oh wow.
And I can't remember who plays JFK. I've only started it and I haven't finished it, but I heard it's awesome.
Well, what we were just talking about, you were saying Elvis wasn't somebody who stood out so much in the way that...
And then in my head, I'm like, he would stick out like a sore thumb.
No, he wouldn't. That's what I'm saying is, imagine if you changed his look, and as you said, unfortunately, this was the era that people called Fat Elvis. Yeah. He didn't necessarily have that same iconic look. His face was rounder. He didn't have the same thin face, the same thinner structure that people were used to. This was somebody that the drugs, the illness, they had caught up to him, and he didn't really look like that iconic version of Elvis. A lot of impersonators, nowadays you'll have impersonators impersonating all of the different Elvis eras, but, I don't think that in 1977 was all that popular. People were impersonating Elvis as the iconic version of Elvis that everybody thought of. So I feel like he would actually have no trouble blending in. I mean, imagine if they dyed his hair blonde or something. He's gained weight. He doesn't really look the same. He's got blonde hair. People aren't really going to be like, they might be like, yeah, he looks a little like Elvis's cousin or something,
facial structure, It's like the surfer version of Elvis. Wait, that's Blue Hawaii.
You're right, Blue Hawaii. Well, but that's what I'm saying. So I just think out of all of these theories that are out there, these conspiracy theories, that one is the one that I find the most believable, because I don't feel like somebody like Elvis would be like, I think I'll fake my death today just for funsies. But if it's something like that where you're like, well, maybe he really did, because I have heard that Elvis kind of had a bit of like a do-good complex. He wanted to be a good guy. He wanted to be a hero. Yeah. Imagine if the FBI was like, hey, you know a guy that knows a guy, you have an in, we want to take these guys down. He might have jumped on that and been like, yeah, let's do it. And then maybe he wasn't so great at it, and they were like, hey,
right,
they figured out it was you.
and that fits in with
you gotta disappear.
That fits in with his actual visit to the Nixon White House.
That's what I'm saying. Is
like he comes back and he's like, I know you guys tried to want me for something, you know? Like,
yeah, and maybe they were like, well, he said something before.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll do it for us. And they're like, hey, you want to do this? And then they're like, man, he didn't do it right. Now we got to move him. We got to put him in witness protection. Yeah. Because, you know.
He compromised the
mission
or
what, he was found out. They know he's the mole. This last theory that I'm going to tell you. Uh-huh. This one, I don't even know why this is a theory. So there's a theory that in Home Alone, the 1990 film Home Alone.
I was going to say the classic novel.
Yeah, no. So this was 13 years after Elvis died. Uh-huh. He would have been 55. So Kate, that's the mom, when she's like frantically checking flight availability, she's like up at the ticket counter like, oh my God, yelling at the lady. Like kind of directly behind her, like if you're watching the TV, it would be on your right, so over like her left shoulder. Mm-hmm. There's a man with a beard standing there. He's got a black shirt and like a suit jacket, like a gray or maybe tan suit jacket. And some people claim that that is Elvis. I don't know why.
In the Christopher Columbus 1990 Macaulay Culkin film, Home Alone, in the airport scene with John Candy and Catherine O'Hara.
Yes. I don't know if they think that he was just a stand-in, or if somebody was in on it and knew Elvis was alive and invited him to be in the movie. I don't know that far.
I mean, we know Donald Trump was in Home Alone too.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're just filling up this franchise with mythic figures.
Mythic?
Say what you want about the man.
I don't know if
it does kind of fit.
Call Trump mythic.
His myth is self-made.
More like idiotic.
That too.
But
I'm not saying it's not.
I was like, nah. But I mean,
I was like, is 55? That doesn't sound right. 1990? It was. He was born in 35.
Yeah. So I have this image. This is another image that we're gonna post for you guys. And I have a good image with like there's a circle around him and it says Elvis ? And it's pointing at him, so you'll see exactly who we're talking about. And here, I'm gonna let you take a look, Nicholas.
I have more. I think that he got abducted by aliens is more plausible.
You think so? Than that he was just chilling and decided to be in Home Alone? Do you think that looks like a 55-year-old Elvis?
No, that looks like Al Carn or Richard Karn, the guy who played Al Borland on Home Improvement.
Yeah, I was going to say Al Borland. Yeah, that's who I thought it looks like too. I don't really see why Elvis.
I mean, if it's Elvis, he's using Just for Men to color the beard.
I mean, if you're trying to hide. But that to me, I was just like, why is this a theory? That he's in hiding. So he faked his own death either for his own reasons or because he's put in witness protection. But then he decides to be kind of like prominently stuck in this scene where he's standing
blockbuster
here.
Movie that everyone alive today has seen.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like, especially if you're in witness protection, that would get you kicked out real fast. They'd be like, all right, we're not responsible anymore.
Wait, you wouldn't put yourself on film? Like, on
really?
The film?
Yeah, no. That is the end of my conspiracy theories.
What about aliens? I thought he got abducted by aliens.
I haven't really heard too much about that one, but let's hear it, Nicholas.
I've just seen it in like different films, like Independence Day.
But I've never heard of it as like really. These are, I don't want to say serious.
Like
See,
they go on top of
serious conspiracy theories.
In Independence Day when like
but that's in
Vivica
a movie.
Fox is...
That's like a plot in a movie. I'm not saying these are conspiracy theories that have a large following. Other than the Home Alone one, that one I just thought was funny. It's kind of like a fringe conspiracy theory. But the rest of these, there are large amounts of people that 100% believe
there are factions
Elvis
of believers.
Is still alive, and this is why, and this is what happened.
And I'm sorry to pop that bubble, but he's gone.
How do you know?
He's gone.
Have we done DNA testing on his remains?
Do we need to?
I mean...
Do you want to exhume? You want to be in charge of that? Let's exhume the king.
Why not?
Because he could play in his bones.
Play in his bones? You're so weird.
You're weird.
Yeah, well, whatever.
I think he's dead.
I
think he'll be a name that's known for forever.
I think he's probably dead because here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you're still alive in any capacity and people are like, yep, he died on the shitters training, you're going to be like, no,
Yeah,
hold up.
let me correct that
Redact
record.
that. Like, I will out myself
Yeah.
as alive if you don't go back and tell that doctor that he needs to say, nope, just kidding. But, I mean, at the same time, he might have known that was what was going to happen. Like, here's the deal.
Yeah.
You do have these medical conditions.
Fuck your autopsy results.
All of your charts say constipation.
I died of an
guess what,
exploded
pal?
sphincter. I did not. Like,
guess what, pal? We're gonna say it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying yes, 100% Elvis is alive and I believe all that, but I'm just saying I can see why some people have a conspiracy theory, and I know a lot of it is he's such a prolific figure that meant so much to so many people.
Yeah.
And the last thing they want to do is think about their hero or the person they look up to, or even somebody that played such a part in their life. They don't want to think of that person as being gone, especially gone from drugs, a heart attack, constipation.
I mean, 1935 to 1977.
Yeah, that's not the kind of thing people want
died young.
to remember.
He'd be 82 now.
Yeah.
So
that's not that old. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
My grandma talks about going to his concert and how her brother, who unfortunately passed away very young, when he would have been like college age. So she has really fond memories of her older brother taking her to see Elvis and of women around her fainting, and she thought they were a bit much, and everyone just getting so excited, and so she has a real fondness for Elvis. Everybody wanted to marry Elvis. We were actually we were at the MIM, the Musical Instrument Museum here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And they have, if you've never been, first off, if you live in the area, you should go. It's huge. You honestly can't see the whole thing in a day. But they have different areas. Like sometimes it's a whole room that's dedicated to a theme, or they'll have tiny little different sections in a room throughout. Like there's areas that are instruments from different regions, or there was an area we were in that were different singers, songwriters, musicians, basically, that were influential in certain eras, and there was a big setup for Elvis. And my sister and I were kind of like, all right, cool, and then went to walk. My grandma's like, no, come back here. And we were like, whoa,
you were meant to get an education.
And she was like, the king. And we were like, yeah, we saw it. She's like, no, there's a little video playing. You didn't watch the whole video. And we were like, sorry, grandma. And my grandpa was like somewhere else, and she was like, what are you doing? And he was like, oh, I'm coming over to watch Elvis. And we were all like looking at each other, and I was like, Grandpa, I didn't know she liked Elvis so much. And he was like, yeah. And I was just like, okay, we'll stay for Elvis. But I mean, there's a lot of people that Elvis meant a lot to them.
Yeah, my late grandmother, she had the collectible like plates.
Yeah.
Like, as a phenomenon, like if you're listening to this and you have no reference point, like TVs used to like market like commemorative like gold line plates with like a lot of it moved to like patriotism, like 9/11 commemorative never forget plate.
I have plates for Star Trek.
Right, and you have Star Trek plates. It's like an older white people thing, but
I know.
But you're an older white person in spirit.
On the inside.
Yeah. You're making up for time you might not get.
I'm an old grandma on the inside.
Yeah. But my grandmother had, a lot of those plates, and a lot of them were Elvis, and she would always watch the old movies on Turner Classic.
Oh, yeah.
When they were on, it was just like, oh, it's Elvis. And, just Blue Hawaii, I remember a lot.
Yes.
And I think, was he in Clambake? I think Clambake was one of his movies. But yeah, I mean, just such a star. And it's like I grew as a kid. I was like, I don't get it. Like,
well, and he served, so people are like, he's a true American, and he was a movie star. He made movies, and he sang, and he entertained, and he was just like who everybody wanted to be.
He took care of his family, and he took care of his people. He made sure that and
I mean, there were some people had some issues. There were some issues with the fact that he was basically taking music that
was black music.
It was they originated it, they created it.
Yeah.
And he basically took it and then became
cultural appropriation,
Cultural appropriation at its finest. This is a true example of
it. Well,
I
think it's like, oh, this is totally guilty.
And what makes it guilty is there was no nod back to where it came from. Like, nobody cited their sources. And the fact that it became more popular than the black musicians instead of
elevating them.
Yeah, instead of, you know.
Because he could have formed Motown before Motown was a thing.
Or he could have been like, if you think I'm good,
yeah.
this guy, you know, I learned this from him.
Yeah.
Check him out. I'm endorsing him.
Yeah.
And instead, he was just like, oh, that's kind of good. Oh, that's a nice dance move. I'll take that. And I think part of that, I don't want to make excuses, but I think part of that was nowadays, I don't want to say we know better, but we should know better. And I think in that time, maybe not enough people said, hey,
they were like, what
are you doing?
The social problems that were at the fringes were like murders that were racially motivated. Yeah. So it's like, oh, the music can take we don't have to fight that battle yet.
But, you know, so I don't want to forget that. So I don't want to say Elvis was the greatest and there was no problems. And I don't want to pretend that those issues don't exist, because unfortunately I think a lot of people kind of do.
Yeah.
With
gospel,
those issues.
He had a whole gospel side that was.
And that's the thing, is I don't want to say he was perfect. Let's ignore that.
No, I think we're focusing on his flaws.
Let's remember the flaws, but that doesn't detract from what he meant to so many people.
Sure.
And what kind of a hero he was. And how you can just see people don't want to believe their hero is gone. Mm-hmm. But I still think that maybe it's kind of fun to have that, like, well, maybe, because you really can't know. You know, I didn't see the body.
And also, like, we're 50 years from his death almost, right?
Yeah.
Like 77. No, it's 40 years.
Yeah, I was like, we're about 40.
So we're 40 years from his death, and he's still culturally relevant.
Yes, people still know who he is.
Like I said, the reason I'm having the Bader Meinhof like frequency illusion is because stuff is still coming up that's culturally relevant. Like, you know, he's still referenced in movies. He's like, 'cause there's a hologram in 2049.
Well, that's like my mom got from my grandpa. He gave her back a huge box of her 8-track tapes. And my little sister, who's 16, had never seen one, had no idea what it was.
Yeah, I didn't know what an 8-track was until I found my grandparents.
Yeah, I mean, I knew what they were because I like that kind of old stuff.
I don't know why they ever went away. Because
they weren't good.
Oh, really? I thought
vinyl sounds better, and cassette tapes sound better.
I thought they were better than cassettes.
No, their quality is not. Trust me on this.
Okay.
But at the time, it was like, they came out when vinyl was still a thing, and you don't really want to record player in your car. There were some cars that had them.
Yeah.
But I mean, go over a bump and say, so these were better, but then cassettes came out and people were like, oops, 8-tracks, get out of here.
Yeah.
Cassettes are smaller, they sound better. But you have kids nowadays that don't even know what an 8-track or a cassette is. I saw a video and they were saying, here, play them. And the kids were like holding them up to their ear, trying to hear the music. But if you said to those kids, Elvis, they immediately think Elvis Presley the King. They know who he is. So it's like technology that's not even that old is so irrelevant to kids these days, but they still know who he is. That's something that people who didn't grow up in that era, that didn't grow up with that, maybe they don't even have grandparents living who talked about Elvis, who grew up in that era, and yet they still know who Elvis is.
Yeah.
So that just tells you how prolific he was.
Yes.
And still is.
I can't get over the idea of like holding a cassette up to your ear and expecting to hear music, because it was just a reel to reel inside of like a plastic case.
Yeah, I saw this video. These kids were pretty young, but
it's like the picture on the internet that or somebody had a floppy disk.
Yeah,
and they were like
yes,
the kid was like, oh, you 3D printed the save icon, like like what?
Yeah, well, like that was like when I was helping you go through some things, we found one.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you even have anything that can read this? Because I think they're pictures. Because it was in with a bunch of discs that said, like, pictures. Like, ones you got from Walgreens. They gave you the disc. And I was like, oh, no.
Those discs can't even hold pictures, though. Because they're only, like, 1.35 megabytes.
Couple, like, a little
1.35 megabytes?
But I was like, man, I hope this isn't anything important. Nothing can read these.
This podcast is going to be compressed, and it'll still be between, like, 11 and 20 megabytes.
I know. But that's what's
it
so
would have
crazy.
Taken,
how long ago in high school?
Yeah.
I was using floppies.
Yes.
To save stuff.
I was too.
I had a teacher that would give them to us.
Yes.
Write our name on them, and we would just erase it and put the new document on every time and give it to him. And that's how he would get our papers.
Yes.
And now I don't own anything that could read a floppy. I don't own a single computer, and I haven't for years. And it's just like, and yet people still know who this person was.
Yeah.
One person is still so prolific, and that's why people don't want to believe that the king is dead. I mean, we don't know if he's really left the building.
I don't hear him. I think he's gone.
You think he's gone?
Yeah.
I think it's fun to let people hold on.
I think it's fun to talk about it.
Oh, I think it's fun to let people hold on to that. If somebody wants to think that he's still around, and like I said, I didn't see the body. I didn't watch him.
Like in terms of
I didn't watch the autopsy.
In terms of like goofy ass beliefs, or just like, oh, wouldn't that be fun to think about? In terms of the harm caused by believing Elvis faked his death and is still around, no harm to that.
And I honestly think, if they decided to use him, or if he maybe decided on his own to do a little investigation all by himself and got into some trouble, they might have been like, all right, witness protection, because you're somebody that's so prolific and important, we'll put you in witness protection even if you got into this mess yourself. So I don't think that it's outside of the realm of possibility.
And like I said, not harmful. When you think about like what is it, like on a 0 to 10 scale, with 0 being like no harm at all, not even like
doesn't hurt anybody unless you're like,
and then 10 being the worst, which would be like alternative medicine promising cancer cures for terminal patients, like where it's like, oh, if you got actual cancer treatment, this could be solvable, but Steve Jobs, you decided
instead you're gonna rub a melon on your boobs and hope that fixes it.
And then Steve Jobs died of early into his prognosis because he had a treatable form of pancreatic cancer. And so that, I think also Andy Kaufman, same thing. But, so Andy Kaufman's impersonating of Elvis, 0 harm. His decision to forego, actual treatment and die earlier than he would have.
I mean, you can't tell people.
I know
what to do with their.
I still think that's harmful.
I think it's harmful to be the purveyor, but the only way I see this being harmful, and if anybody out there is a big Elvis fan and you think that he's still alive and you think he lives in your town, leave him alone, because he would be what, 82? Mm-hmm. So if there's an 82-year-old man that you think is Elvis, leave him alone, even if he really is Elvis.
Buy a drone.
Leave him alone.
Buy a drone with a camera.
He deserves, privacy. To be left alone. Yeah. He deserves to have some privacy. If you want to help him unload his groceries or something and be nice, go for it. But don't be like, are you the king? Hey, are you Elvis? Hey, leave the dude alone.
Right.
And then it's not harmful.
What if the end was basically him reaching bottom in the bathroom and saying, like, I have to quit all the drugs I'm doing. I have to quit the music I'm doing. Because my friends now are also taking those drugs. I can't go into cold turkey. I can't go into Narcotics Anonymous. I can't, I just have to disappear and try to do this on my. But what if he decided to just become like a minimalist kind of ascetic lifestyle?
Yeah, never know.
I'm smirking because I kind of like that idea. Like, what if he quit what if he quit all the vice and the fame? Yeah. And just bought a piece of land and decided to live on it, and I don't know. He
pulled a Sherlock Holmes and went off to the country to tend bees.
Bees or whatever. All right. Well, again, you can always message us, or if you have some input on Elvis, if you have an Elvis story, especially in your family, with all the relatives, we would want to hear that. You can reach out to us at campfirecurmudgeon@gmail.com, at CFCurmudge on Twitter.
You can find us at campfirecurmudgeon.com. We also have our phone number listed there. You can give us a call and leave a voicemail. You can, if your grandma has a story about Elvis, she can tell us on the voicemail. We can play it.
Comment on our Facebook.
Absolutely. Definitely. Our Facebook, just Campfire Curmudgeon. Same that you can find us on Instagram.
And we're still pushing through to, if you review us on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review, we will gather your name for a giveaway.
And we are announcing the winner of that giveaway next week. So the next episode you hear, we will say the name of the winner at the end of the episode. So this is your last chance to get those in.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and thank you very much.
Keep the campfire burning.
All right. Bye.